So what I'm going to ask is a representative from each one of the rooms to share their challenge. So just a reminder, remember to unmute yourself and then mute yourself again once you're done sharing. So could I ask the rep from Breakout Room 1, please? What was one of the challenges that you talked about in your room?
Sure, so it's Prince here. It was an interesting one. It was a function of engagement. But it was from both points of views. True engagement, because there is keeping in mind the pandemic and keeping in mind the virtual world. So, how do you really engage people from that perspective? But the flip side of it, certain clubs were also feeling that because of the virtual world, engagement is much higher. So when you go back to the physical world, are people actually going to come to meetings? Now it's convenient to come to meetings, so they're there. But when we get to the hybrid world, is that going to happen?
Right. So hopefully everyone can see me trying to capture things as they're shared. Thank you, Prince. Those are definitely some very relevant concerns. Breakout Room 2, who did you volunteer?
Michael Anderson.
Hey, Michael.
I guess the first thing was concern over bringing the clubs back out of COVID. So the sense that people would want to just run a little rampant once they get back to in person. So again, it's about preparing or getting the club prepared for when you're going to stop doing virtual and back into in person, and getting them engaged and being able to restrain them to a certain extent and keep them focused. There was also some sense of some of the clubs having small cliques within the club that were creating some issues about trying to keep the club focused in a particular direction. So some of it was about some of the clubs have started to restructure their committees in an effort to try to break up those little cliques and refocus the club. And again, the third thing would be just sort of community engagement, that sense of trying to get everyone focused. So there was some discussion about youth exchange and the need, because those things have ceased as a result of COVID. Yep. How do you get back to that sort of structure of getting engaged and pulling things in like youth exchange?
Great, thank you. Breakout Room 3. What was one of the big things that you talked about that maybe isn't already on the board? Oh, did Breakout Room 3 not select a spokesperson? Or are they on mute speaking to themselves right now?
I kind of volunteered Sharon because she...
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was number 3. Sorry, my apologies.
This is the fun of virtual. Hey, Sharon. Okay.
So I'm just gonna go through the ones that haven't been mentioned so we don't repeat.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks.
One of the things that my group had said was long held positions and finding replacements, so succession planning. Because when people get older, they retired, and they've been doing the job for 20 years, it's very hard to replace them. The other one was snowbirds. Someone had said that, because their club has snowbirds, they felt they didn't want to run for positions or hold any kind of responsibility role because they just rather just kind of be there doing that. Fundraising was the other thing that my group had mentioned. With COVID, it's very difficult to fundraise. But as I had mentioned, I think that this is a great opportunity for each club to reflect on their core values, because, otherwise clubs become fundraising machines and we're just granting out things. We should be able to say that we're Rotarians because we care about our community and that we volunteer. And you know, to look at that we're not just a place for charities to come to ask for a grant or, you know, a handout, right? That we're there to get involved and get to know them. So
I love how that spun around, right? That there's I won't call it a silver lining, I'll call it a different story, right?
Yeah.
That's why she was voluntold.
And then, you know, there was the same thing about activities, being creative about activities, because we can't do face-to-face, or people might not, you know, feel comfortable in doing face-to-face until such time that everybody gets vaccinated.
Yep.
It's, you know, it's made people to become more creative. And because we're using Zoom, it's actually allowed more participation for members, because as I said to my group, you know, people often now in my club, while they're making dinner, while they're doing things with their kids, they can still participate and still feel part of that conversation. So those are
Absolutely.
really engaging activities.
For sure. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually move us on to another group just so we can hear from some other folks here. So those are great. And I love how you turn that challenge into an opportunity. So group number, I think I'm on 4.
Okay, that would be me.
Great, Lori.
Yeah.
What's your top pick?
Well, 2 of ours are there already with
Okay.
community engagement and fundraising, but we also talked about diversity, specifically with regard to age, that many of the clubs that we represented are aging out. And, and so although you said membership is not one of the issues, attracting a younger demographic is.
Okay. Absolutely. And number 5.
Ferd from Curtis.
Hey, Ferd.
Was voluntold by Gord, and then a unanimous vote by the entire team that I the leader. So in true Rotary fashion. In terms of too many projects spread over too few people. We have too few worker bees. The concern about burnout. You know, there's, you know, 3 different ranges. You got the full participants, everybody who's always engaged. You got the sometimers in, you know, the second group. And then you have the honorary / you know, politicians that are all members that will participate at the very, very end. You know, big concern is too many projects spread over with too few worker bees. Number 2, what I would refer to as our legacy, our charter members, our older members with past years of experience and influence, you know, discouraging any sort of change, who to support what projects, new consideration, you know, new initiatives that we might wish to support. We've supported the same groups and organizations. They depend on our funds. We cannot stop, you know, providing funds. So they have too much influence over any new blood that we have. I don't want to pick on, again, those older members and, you know, charter legacy members, but the resistance to change and, you know, not having it, you know, whether it's, you know, the Zoom meetings or the other platforms versus in person. And, you know, some of the new presidents have already had meetings where some of those legacy and older members, you know, don't want to continue with the online platform, can't wait for the breakfast, you know, think that we need to go back to in-person socializing. So that's a concern. Some of the presidents have already reported that, you know, at their meetings, they're already, you know, talking about which annual events that, you know, they might not do, you know, talking about potentially canceling. So it becomes one of those, how are we going to do those traditional big events that we normally do and showcase Rotary community-wide? How are we going to adapt, you know, in that new virtual? So, you know, there was a statement of technology and, you know, are we able to adapt and attract and showcase, you know, in the community and stuff? How do we begin that re-engagement post-COVID? our overall.
Bert, I'm going to ask you to pause. I'm going to ask you to pause just there, just so we can move ahead. But I think the general gist of it is, how do we adapt to the new normal, right? And we've got club members and willing to adapt to that in different ways, is how I'm just generally going to capture that. So I'm going to move us forward, but what I'm going to ask you to do is, as you look at these club challenges, hopefully that you can still see on my screen, hopefully these resonate. Some of them resonate with you. Again, there's shared challenges within all of our clubs, right? I'm going to ask you to pause, put this to the side. I'm going to shift us into thinking forward. Okay, so I'm now going to start to offer you some tools to address some of these challenges that we've just talked about. So what I'm going to ask you to do is think about why you joined Rotary, okay, why you belong to Rotary now, and why is there a difference? So we're not going to go out into breakout rooms. I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes, or a minute or two, maybe a minute, to think about this. And then I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you're interested in sharing your thoughts. And again, the question I'm really asking is, why is there a difference between why you joined and why you stayed, right? Why you belong now. And so when you come back and you share your answer, I'm really looking for the answer to the third, not necessarily the entire journey, okay? So if you are interested in sharing, I'm just going to ask you to either physically raise your hand or use the raise hand functionality, and I will try to get to as many of you as I can. All right. So Roger Tessier, if you could unmute yourself, please, and share with us, why is there a difference between when you joined, why did you join, and why do you belong now? What's the difference?
The difference is, now I firmly believe that I know what Rotary is all about. When I first joined, I was joining because it seemed to be the right thing to do, to be a volunteer in a community. Now I know I can make a difference. And the reason I can make a difference is because I'd like to say that I know what the heck I'm doing. And when I speak to someone about Rotary, I feel like I can do it intelligently.
That's great. Thank you. So you got to know more. You know you're part of something bigger. Danny Cassidy, would you like to take yourself off mute and share why there's a difference between why you joined and why you belong now?
I joined Rotary for one reason. Two of my friends were in Rotary. They were retiring, and I am younger than them, but I joined Rotary, to be honest with you, to make sure that I kept in touch with them. I didn't want to lose them as friends. I joined Rotary to keep in touch with them. So that was my original reason for joining Rotary, because I had no idea. I'll tell you a story. We used to, in Scotland, we used to drive by the sign that said Rotary meet here. And my mother, I would ask my mother, what is that? And she would say to me, oh, that's for those and such as those, which means that that's not for us. Right. So Rotary, I didn't know anything about Rotary. Why I'm in Rotary now is because I actually enjoy it. I enjoy helping people. I understand the Rotary now. I understand the benefit of Rotary to the community. That's the main difference. Before I knew nothing about it. Now I'm there because I want to be.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Excellent. And I'm going to go for one more, and that's going to be Trevor and Shelley Hayerman. So if you'd like to take yourself off mute and tell me, why is there a difference between why you joined and why you belong now?
So we joined because somebody asked us, and we wanted to give back. To whom much is given, much is required. We're here now because we thoroughly enjoy the community that we're in. with other Rotarians, and we stay because we've been educated. We're educated that it doesn't just involve our little wee town of Sterling, but that Rotary involves the whole world. So that's why we stay, and we get to see you guys.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing. So what I'm hoping you heard there is a consistent theme. And that theme was that you gained knowledge, right? That you gained an understanding of what Rotary had to offer, right? There was the knowledge gained, there was the fellowship, right? That you now feel part of something bigger, right? That you're part of a group that you actually enjoy being a part of, that you've made friends, that you enjoy your community. So what I'm going to pose to you is, if these are things that all of you enjoy, would your fellow club members also enjoy the same? Right. So with that in mind, I'm now going to share with you a model that's been developed around club vitality. So some of you may have seen this model before. It was developed by a fellow called George Bullard, and George developed it when he was looking at other social organizations and how they stayed vibrant and relevant to their communities. It was then modified by a Rotarian called Jack Tacoma, and Jack is actually here in Guelph in my district. And it was modified for Rotary. And it's a model that we believe has the four elements of what makes a club vibrant and again, remain relevant to both its members and its community. So we're going to talk about each of these elements in a little bit more detail. Some of you may have seen this before, and I'd ask you to just keep on going with me. And some of you might actually relate it to a sales life cycle model as well. So the four elements of club vitality are that a club has vision, a sense of direction, right? That it also has relationships and strong relationships, that there is projects or work that the club is active around, and that there's some sort of management, some sort of organization that brings this all together, right? So in order to explain this, this vision, relationship, project, and management continuum, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about the origins of Rotary. So Paul Harris was our founder, and Paul Harris moved to Chicago from a small town. And when he landed in this small town, he felt like, a little fish out of water, a little out of place, and he really didn't have a lot of friends. So he set out with the intention or the vision of, creating a community for other folks who had moved from small towns to have a place to go. So that was his vision. It had nothing to do with service. It was simply that he wanted to, as an opportunity for people to come together who had moved into the big city. And so a group of 4 individuals came together, and they got to know one another very well. They built relationships, they got to know each other, they got to know each other's work. And some of you might know that they rotated in amongst, their various offices, and that's how the term Rotary came about. So they built relationships, and then over time, they started to think, well, it's all fun and games getting together for beer and a chat, but, we're people of resource here. We've got skills, and we've got money, and we've got time. Why don't we do something valuable in our communities? So their first project that they decided to do was to set up, I think they were called comfort stations in downtown Chicago, which were basically toilets, because they had seen that downtown Chicago was getting pretty messy. And so they decided to contribute by setting up these comfort stations. Well, this idea took off, and other people in and around the US heard about Rotary, and it became a worldwide phenomenon. And they said, okay, well, if people are going to start to use the Rotary name and call themselves a Rotary club, then it's about time that we put some management in place. And those are things like bylaws and guidelines that say, this is what we're all about, and this is how we function. So I'm going to pause there and stop telling you the Rotary story, because I'm about to go down the curve, and we're not there yet in terms of the Rotary story. So what I'll offer you is, we believe that clubs that are operating at their optimum, right, have a strong vision, strong relationships amongst their members, strong and vibrant projects, and relevant and active member or management, right? So all of those 4 things are working in tandem. What do you believe is the first thing to go? And I'm just going to ask you to, maybe actually I'll select someone who looks interested. So the question is what of those 4 do you believe goes first when a club's health starts to decline? So, Gord, Wallace, how do you feel about coming off mute? What do you think declines first? What disappears first of those things?
I honestly can't say.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm sorry. I took the
that's
second
okay.
way out, but I can't.
That's okay.
I can't favor one over the other.
That's okay, because one of your peers might have a different answer. So I'm going to ask Peter Hernandez. What do you believe disappears first?
When I looked at the list, they all jumped out at me, but then I thought it has to be the management of it, because if you're not managing it correctly, these projects are going to go all over the place. It'll affect the relationships, and actually, I guess you could get back to the vision, but I'm thinking management.
You're thinking management.
The look you're giving me, it was the wrong one.
Sandy, what do you think?
I just want to agree with Peter. I think it's also the management. I think without leadership, you can't develop a vision. You can't do the other levels. There's an argument for every single one. They're all excellent points. Yep. I'm with Peter.
All right. Fair enough. And Mike, I'm going to give you the floor for a moment. Let's see if you have a different opinion.
I'm going to hazard a guess and say it's vision, because vision is what started it all in the first place. And if there's no vision left, there's nothing left for this club or this group to meet with or go forward with. They've lost their direction. Spot
on. Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's a great way of explaining it too. So yeah, what we often find is when a club starts to falter and starts to struggle, what disappears first is that vision, right? So that sense of purpose, that sense of direction, we start to wonder, what are we all about again, right? So you still enjoy coming together with a great group of people, you've still got friends in the club, you've still got strong relationships, but you're sort of wondering a little bit. What do you think goes next? Jennifer, what do you think goes next? Take yourself off mute, yes. She just has to find the mute button.
Somewhere.
There you go. Okay, we're going to pass on Jennifer, and I'm going to go over to
Sharon. It was just my screen it disappeared for a second, so I was like, where did it go? So the next thing to go would be the relationship.
And why do you think it's relationships?
Well, because unfortunately, I guess once you lose that vision, right, the group, the people working together tend to start to argue, right? And so you lose it there from experience, I guess.
Yeah, well, there you go. So yeah, you're absolutely right. What starts to disappear next are those relationships. And the reason those relationships disappear is because, without that shared common sense of purpose, remember what brought you together in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. Was the idea of service or maybe a specific vision in your club. But now you start to wonder, like, why am I here? I could be out playing with my hockey buddies, or I could be with my family, because, those give me a greater sense of purpose than being a part of my club does. So yeah, we often find that relationships disappear next. And then what do you think disappears next? Okay, I'm going to guess this one, projects. And so projects start to go, and projects don't just go. What might even happen is that they just stay the same. So you open the box for the duck race, and then you close the box for the duck race afterwards, and you put it in the storage unit. And then next year on May 25th, you pull out the box for the duck race, you open the box for the duck race, and you close the box for the duck race, and you put it again. And you do this year after year after year. So it's not that you just don't do things that are exciting anymore. You might just end up doing the same thing. And what you're left with is actually management, right? So management is left, your board is left, and their biggest decision becomes, what are we going to have for lunch, breakfast, or dinner? Is it going to be chicken or is it going to be pork, right? Because there's nothing else to talk about. There's no big decisions left in the club, right, to focus on. So you're left with a board making decisions about really mundane things. Okay. All right. Now that I've freaked you all out and you're like, okay, this is doom and gloom, I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. So we're going to go back into breakout rooms, and the conversations that I'm going to ask you to have is as follows. I'm going to ask you to personally identify where you feel your club is on this continuum. You might be climbing the hill, you might be right up top, you might be, things might be a little rough and your health might be declining, okay? You don't need to tell the group where you're at unless you're comfortable doing so, okay? What's more important about the conversation that I want you to have is I want you to tell me, what were the things that you were thinking about that made you believe what you believe? Right? So what were some of the signs that you were looking at to say, I think we've lost our vision, and here's why, right? Here's what's going on in our club, all right? So any questions around the exercise? Okay, so I'm going to open breakout rooms. Again, remember to select someone to speak on your team's behalf, okay? And we will regroup in, let's say, about 6 minutes, okay? Charles, you ready to hit that go button?
Yeah, the groups have been rearranged into smaller groups, but more of them.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent.
Sorry, you're muted.
Don't worry about it. You're good. I was just saying thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Hey, Charles, could you do me a favor and also send out a broadcast message that says, remember to select your spokesperson, please?
Okay, they're just about to close here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, they're going to be back in a minute.
Okay. And if you want, all right. So we have everyone back. So in the essence of time, I'm actually not going to go around all of the groups, but I am going to pick out a couple. So again, the question that I posed to you was based on where you are on the curve, where, what were some of the telling signs? How do you know where you were? So group 3, hopefully the person who, something tells me this is funny, Trevor, but group 3, your spokesperson, if you could unmute yourself, please, and share, how do you know, what was some of the signs about where you were on this continuum?
Okay, so I'm the spokesperson for group 3. Thank you, Sandia. And you know what's interesting? I'm thinking that what we did is we looked at that curve, we started at the bottom and we went through the challenges, right, in concession. And people stopped where their particular club had an issue. So there wasn't anything in particular that was common with it. We actually had people who, their problems, maybe their challenges began around the relationship area, and then there was projects, and then of course management, and everybody gave very sound reasoning for, why their club was having this experience. I think the lesson there is that not every club is the same. We're all having different things happen, but we also have these amazing commonalities too, right? I don't know what to tell you, but there wasn't any one thing that spurred where it started.
That's okay. No, that's a great finding. Again, I think it's the third time I'm mentioning is that your greatest resource is actually not me. It is the people around this room who are sitting in the same seat as you, right? With shared experiences. So thank you for that. Group 6, who did you volunteer to speak on your behalf?
I guess that's myself. And I think that in a lot of respects, what you just said really summarizes a lot of the final discussion. And that is the fact that in the group, clubs were finding themselves at various stages, some on the upswing, some at the peak, and some on the downswing. A lot of it centering around vision. But it really speaks to what a lot of us live in on a day-to-day basis, and that is the fact that regardless of what industry we're in a business cycle. And sometimes you're on the upswing, sometimes you're on the downswing, sometimes you're at the peak. And I think that for the most part, clubs will find themselves at various stages, sometimes going up, sometimes at the peak, and sometimes going down. And that's going to cause us to reinvent ourselves to one extent or another in certain areas. This has been a particularly challenging year. A lot of the commonalities are obviously fundraising, challenges with fundraising, challenges with projects and staleness, engagement of members. And yet at the same time, we've already heard tonight that others are on the upswing on members and engagement, et cetera. And so I think realistically, there are certain aspects that are on this curve where you're potentially finding yourself on the upswing on some aspects and on the downswing on others. And it depends entirely on where you are. Yeah,
fair point. All right. I'm going to ask group, I think there was a group 10. Thanks, Richard. I'm going to ask a spokesperson from group 10 to volunteer part of their conversation, please.
Yep, that's me, Leanne from Sterling. We had a great discussion. I think most people felt that pre-COVID, we all kind of felt that we were on top or very close to the top of that curve. And then but with the changes and everything, I think the general consensus, the other people in my group were all from Scarborough, so they had a lot more different challenges than that I had in small town Sterling, but they felt that missing a lot of projects, that they just weren't able to do what they could do. And the one comment was that if we have the projects, if we can get those back, that we'll come together and we'll get the vision back and we'll be able to, you know, get back to the top. So I think that was just the general consensus, is that they were missing the events, the activities that they'd been able to do. And once they get that back, that hopefully everything will bring them back up to the peak.
Things will renew. Great. All right, so I'm going to ask us to shift gears slightly. One of the things we talked about before we went into our breakout rooms was that vision is often the first thing to go. And that sort of denotes a club that might start to, that's sort of on that decline, right? And whose health is declining. So the question I'm going to ask you to answer, and this is where I'm going to actually ask you to go into the chat room, is tell me some of the characteristics that a club with vision has. What does a club look like that has vision? So just throw your thoughts into the chat room there. So cohesion, there are goals, there's a good leader, community integration, aligned, purpose, members all rowing in the same direction, motivating, making it happen, full member participation, engagement. There's busyness, there's chatter, and there's laughter. Yeah, absolutely. There's communication, there's strong management. All right, there's planning. So I'm going to ask you to pause, shift gears again, and tell me characteristics of, oh, there's more. Love of community. These are great. Shift gears and start to tell me about the characteristics of a club that lacks vision. Infighting. Yep. There's conflict, no direction, confusion. Individualism, managed by a few. There's petty. No one wants to join. Meetings cease to happen. Yeah, there's no plan, low turnout. Yeah, so there's definitely, you're on the right track. So I'm going to offer you a summarized list here. So with vision, a club with vision, okay, we often find has passion, direction, goals, leadership, core values, a sense of why we're here, motivation. Those are all the things that have been coming up in this chat, right? And then a club without vision looks like this, right? Members start to disappear. There's no direction. There's no stress. And people are like, yeah, but no stress is great. Yeah, something we don't like stress. No, we do like stress. We like that good motivating stress, right? People are in their comfort zone. There's no raison d'etre. Things are smooth and predictable. Again, you know Thursday, every third Thursday of the month, you're going to have chicken, right? And the ultimate is that things get into a bit of a death spiral, right? What I want you to look at here is that if you remember the conversation we had at the very beginning about vibrant clubs, right? And the things that why we stay in our clubs, they are the things on the left-hand side of this list, right? They make up a vibrant club. The things on the right-hand side are those things that are detractors, the things that we don't like, right? So you might be looking at this and going, okay, so I'm on the right-hand side. There's hope, right? Yeah, there absolutely is. You can be at different stages. Let's say you've lost your vision, right? You're losing a sense of purpose, sense of direction. You're not quite sure. You're not quite sure, why you're there or what your club's about anymore. You can restore your vision, and that's a reasonably easy exercise, right? It takes some investment. Your district offers a district-led visioning program, and they'll take you through an exercise that will help your club, figure out what it's all about and set some goals in some key areas. And you might already have, people in your club that have that expertise and that can facilitate something to help get your club realigned around its intentions, right? And the plan to deliver on that intention and that vision. When you start to lose your vision and your relationships, it's a slightly different picture. That's a little harder to climb, right? Because now you've lost your sense of purpose, and people may not be interested in rallying anymore and getting back to that. So it's a little harder to climb, but it's still doable. It just takes a little bit more energy. And if you find yourself at the bottom of that curve, it's like climbing a hill, right? When you're at the bottom, it's a lot harder to climb. And you may find yourself thinking it might be best to actually invest the energy into starting anew in its entirety, right? So what I will suggest to you is, if you are on the left-hand side of this curve where you are still building up, keep on going. And if you're at the top of the curve and finding yourself doing exceedingly well, then keep at it and continue on, and make sure you're keeping an eye out for things that might indicate something's not right. If you find yourself anywhere on the right-hand side, the sooner you catch where you are and the sooner you address where you are, the better, okay? So with that, I'm actually going to ask you to pull out the survey that you were all asked to at least print off or make available. And I'm going to ask you to do that survey. So this is, again, your own reflections on where your club is at. I'm going to ask you to put an X under those ratings relative to those questions. There are 12 straightforward questions, and then I'm going to give you some help to address some of those areas that you find you want to focus on. Okay. I'm not going to ask you to share this with anyone, so please be honest and candid and put down what you think. I'm seeing some rather studious faces, so I will move on when I see less studious faces. All right. So hopefully all of you have had the opportunity to go through that survey. If you're still looking for a little bit more time, that's okay. You have this at your disposal. So this Developing a Vibrant Club profile worksheet is a summarized tool that Rotary offers, which is the Rotary Club Health Check, but we decided to simplify it for the purposes of this course and allow you to just ask yourself some pretty simple questions about where your club's at. If you pull out your Vibrant Club brochure, I'm going to tell you how things connect. So on the back of that Vibrant Club brochure, in fact, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to make myself bigger. There's that. So on the back of that Vibrant Club brochure, you will see a whole bunch of boxes. And we've actually tied the questions to these boxes, okay? And so let's say you completed this survey and you said, our club has a vision that is current and we have written long-term goals. And you said, you know what? As incoming president, I disagree. I don't believe that's true. Well, so here's your opportunity. If you look at the Vibrant Club brochure, right, up in the top left-hand corner is some solutions for that challenge. So decide what you'd like your club to be like in 3 to 5 years. Plan an annual visioning session. Again, your district is able to help you. Use the Rotary Club Health Check to identify your club's strengths and areas that need improvement. And then use the strategic planning guide to set long-term goals. Okay, so they go hand in hand, that visioning, as well as you've got to set up a plan. And that's often where things fall apart, is setting up that plan. Okay. Let's say on number 6, our bylaws and constitution are up to date and reflect the current environment. You said, you know what? I strongly disagree on that one. So the way this one works is it goes across and then back down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what we offer you is adapt your club's bylaws to reflect the way the club actually works. Involve your members when you review your club's bylaws every year, and edit the recommended Rotary Club bylaws template to reflect new practices and procedures, right? So based on, I'm not going to go through all of them, but based on where you find yourself saying, I think this is an opportunity, right? That gives you a chance to actually come up with a tangible action plan on how you're going to address those opportunities, right? Now, if you've got 5 things that you've sort of said, yeah, I think we're 1 to 3, don't try to tackle all 5 all at once, right? Tackle what you believe to be the most important. And this is maybe where your board or your club members have valuable insights as to what to prioritize, right, as you approach your year. Where you've got 5s and 4s, that's great. Hold on to those things, right? Look out for the things that, think about. I said that the relationships within our club are greatly healthy and generally healthy and positive. That's number 7. If you put down 4, right, think about what you thought about as you answered that question and make sure that you're maintaining that. You may not necessarily need to invest extra effort in that in terms of, rotating people and where they sit, but you might want to put some effort into maintaining what is working well. Okay. All right. So we are coming to a close here. And yes, these slides will be available to you, but what I did was summarize some of those recommendations on a single slide here. So again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are some of those things that you might consider doing, right, to address the challenges that your club is facing, or again, maintaining where your club is already very strong. So I'm going to ask you to put pen to paper again. Now knowing where your club's opportunities are and the challenges that you're facing, I'm going to ask you to think about what some of the recommendations are and some of the things that you've thought about. And what are the 3 initiatives that you will implement in your year as president? Okay. And I'm going to actually ask you to write these down, because when goals are written down, they're actually more likely to be actioned. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that on your own. Excellent. I see some pens still frantically writing down plans for next year, and I see some folks who are ready to move on. So to keep us to time, I'm going to take us forth a little bit further, and I'm going to find my screen again is what I'm going to do. So what I want to share with you is a couple of other things that Rotary and your district offer you. One of the things that we talked about when we spoke about what the difference was between why you joined and why you stayed was knowledge. And Beth, I believe your district is still actively offering their RLI program.
Correct.
Perfect. So for those of you who have attended RLI, please promote it. For those of you who are unaware of it, it is the Rotary Leadership Institute, and it is intended to increase Rotarians' base knowledge of Rotary and get them more informed on, you know, all things Rotary. So there's a number of courses that are offered. The other thing I will share is that not only does it help you in your Rotary world, it also helps you in your work world as well. A lot of what is shared and discussed and the sessions that are facilitated lend themselves to your professional space as well. The other learning space is the Rotary Learning Center. That center has been bulked up with a lot of very valuable content. So if you haven't visited it, please do. You'll find a number of courses for you as president, as well as a number of courses there for your team and things that you might recommend to your members. So there are a number of avenues for you to increase your knowledge about all things Rotary. And again, that is one of those key things to staying engaged and vibrant. All right, so here comes the true test of whether I did my job well or not. All right. So if you want a vibrant club, where do you start? What's the first element of a vibrant club? And I'm just going to ask you to throw it in the chat box or stick your hand up or yell it out if you are so inclined. What's that first element?
Fun.
Fun. Okay.
Community.
Well, I'm seeing some great answers in the chat room, which is vision. Absolutely. So yes, I'm going to offer you, if you are on your way to a vibrant club, start with your vision. Why do you exist? What are you all about? Okay. What's that second bit? Once you know what you're all about, what do you need to make sure what do you need to make sure is in place? Relationships. What else? Goals. What's something that we just talked about in terms of what keeps people informed? It's a bit of a dead giveaway when I say that. It's that knowledge and education piece, right? So once you set that vision up, get people informed about what's going on and build those relationships. Communication. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, right? You want to communicate what that vision is all about. And from there, what do you hope all of this will do? So now you've got a vision. Now you've got people who are knowledgeable about that vision. What do you hope to have after all of that?
Unification.
Unification, yeah. Be friends and learn, yeah. What I'm hoping it yields is that engagement. Spot on, Joyce. Yeah, what I'm hoping you get out of all of that effort and figuring out what you're all about, helping people to understand what you're all about is engagement, right? Community engagement, member engagement, whatever engagement looks to you, right? All said and done, once you have those elements, that's what you end up with. You end up with a very vibrant club. Okay? I am putting my contact information up there. I'm happy to answer questions. I will make some of these slides available to the group. Feel free to contact me by email or by phone. If you're going to reach out to me, just give me a little bit of leeway to get back to you, but I do promise to get back to you. And I'll pause now and ask if there are any questions.
So Sandia, I'm conscious of your time, and I think you've done a great job answering questions tonight. I think if folks have some specific and unique questions, thank you. You've given them your contact information. So on behalf of the District 7070 President-elects and Assistant Governors and members of the District Governor team, I'd like to thank you very much for a wonderful presentation tonight. And in our thanks to you, we'll be making a donation to the Rotary Foundation Canada in your name. And we'd like to wish you best wishes as you prepare to be district governor in 2022 and 2023. So let's give Sandia a round of applause. Yay, Sandia.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I learned the most when I actually get to sit in amongst Rotarians and hear their stories about their clubs. You undoubtedly have a challenging year with a twist ahead of you, with hopefully recovering from COVID. And I wish you all the best in your clubs and in your year. And if I can be of any assistance, please let me know.
That's wonderful. And just before the group leaves, I want to introduce our topic for next week. It's when good people disagree, dealing with conflict in Rotary. And we have Gail Uday, who is a director with the Coaching and Training Center for Conflict Resolution International. And she's going to be our presenter next week. And similar to Sandia's presentation tonight, she's also going to be using the breakout room feature and posing some situations that you'll need to talk about in terms of how to handle that conflict. So with that, everybody, thank you very much. A special thank you to Sandia for giving of your time to us tonight. It was a great presentation. We really appreciate you being with us.
You're very welcome.
Okay, take care. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye-bye. Sorry, I'm just scanning some of the chat.
Okay. And if there are questions there, Sandia, that you'd like to